Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Sana Bakai, Vice President of IAA India Delhi branch. I would like to welcome you all to the third webinar in our Super Success series on the topic of ESG roadmap, data collection, and material perspective. ESG or environmental, social, and governance is a rapidly growing area of interest for businesses and investors alike. As the world becomes increasingly aware of the impact that businesses have on the environment and society, there is a growing demand for businesses to be more transparent about their ESG performance. This webinar will provide you with an overview of the ESG landscape and discuss the importance of data collection and materiality in ESG reporting. We will hear from our speaker, Ms. Jyoti Singh, on how businesses can develop and implement an ESG roadmap. I hope you will find this webinar informative and helpful. Please feel free to ask any question that you have using the chat box. And Jyoti will take up these questions towards the end. Now I would like to hand it over to Priya for introducing our speaker, Ms. Jyoti. Over to you, Priya.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. I am Priya Gupta. I am one of the POG in the Delhi branch Women's Forum, IIA India. And good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed participant and distinguished guests. Welcome to today's webinar on ESG roadmap, data collection and materiality perspective, featuring an esteemed speaker with over 2 decades of experience in the field of sustainability, reporting, integrated reporting, assurance, corporate governance, internal controls, and risk management. We are honored to have CA Jyoti Singh, a renowned partner at Aumyaa Consulting Services Limited, gracing us with her experience and insights. In an era where environmental, social, and governance considerations are gaining paramount importance, it is crucial for organizations to navigate through the complexities of ESG data collection and materiality analysis. As businesses strive to create long-term value and address the expectations of stakeholders, understanding the intricacies of ESG reporting becomes imperative for success. With a vast experience and deep understanding of sustainability reporting, integrated reporting, and related fields, CA Jyoti Singh is a true trailblazer in this domain. Her extensive research and policy-making expertise have made her a trusted advisor to numerous organizations seeking to adopt robust ESG framework and practices. During today's webinar, she will share her invaluable insights, providing a comprehensive roadmap for the ESG data collection and materiality analysis. She will delve into the best practices, methodologies, and tools that organizations can employ to enhance their ESG reporting frameworks and maximize their impact. So without further ado, let us extend a warm welcome to CA Jyoti Singh ji as she takes us on an enlightening journey through the intricacies of ESG and analysis. Thank you, and let us commence this enlightening webinar on ESG roadmap, data collection and materiality perspective.
Thank you so much, Priya, for this warm welcome and introduction. And I'm very thankful to IIA Delhi Women Forum for inviting me to this platform. And this is a topic which is very close to my heart. I'm very passionate about it. And in the next 1 hour, I will try to share what is the current ESG ecosystem, why the organizations are embracing ESG, why it is getting important. And, it is not by any choice, but now it is for survival. ESG embracement by the organizations is very much essential, and how any organization can start its journey towards ESG adoption, what are the important aspects. And as a professional, we should have a clear understanding of these aspects. So I will start my share screen. So we are talking about today about what is the ESG roadmap for an organization which is starting its journey on ESG, and what are the important aspects. So let us first understand why this ESG is becoming so important. What are the global risks which are, I hope the screen is visible, right?
Yes, Jyoti, it is visible.
Okay, thank you, Yukti, so much. So we all are witnessing how the global risk landscape is changing and the economic conditions, they are getting impacted. So you can see there are plethora of risks like environmental, economic, societal, geopolitical, technological, etc., which may turn into tomorrow's crisis. So if you see this global risk report analysis, you can see that the climate and environmental risks, they are becoming the core focus of the global risks over the next decade. If you can see the green ones, they are the environmental risks, and the red ones are the societal risks. In a span of 0 to 2 years, in the span of 2 to 5 years, in the span of 5 to 10 years, in all these, you can see a lot of green and reds on the top. So all the risks, they are the most alarming ones are these. In fact, the World Economic Forum report, which on the global risk, which is a yearly issue, and most of you must be going through it, it states that there's an interplay between these risks. You can't analyze these risks in silos. So they are interplaying, and they're impacting each other. Like if one is there, if there are extreme weather conditions, so they're going to impact the society's the food security. And these natural calamities will also deplete our natural resources. This will lead to accelerated ecosystem collapse, and thereby it will impact the economic conditions. So the main point is that these conditions, they are changing the risks, the external conditions in which the businesses of today's are operating. And the COVID has already shown us that how important the environment is, how important the external factors are for a business to be able to do its operations. So if you see that how these significant changes are impacting the consumers, the investors, the funding agencies. As a consumer, if I talk about each one of us as a consumer, so our buying preferences are also changing. We are seeing that we are ready to pay more for a product which is organic, or which is a sustainable product, which is locally made or produced. So the mindset of each one of us as a consumer is also changing. So naturally, we will be going for those products, or we will be giving more preference to those products which are having low carbon footprint. And if you see that this surveys has been done, where it says that the 88% of consumers are willing to purchase a more sustainable product once they were made aware of the sustainability issues. And the organic products in the markets are increasing. And if there are any news about any product which is harming the nature or something, or which is involving some kind of child labor, so this is also impacting its reputation and branding. If you go to the investors are like where the capital is involved. So you can see that globally there more and more investors are there who are pledging to these global causes. There is one United Nations principle for responsible investment, which lays down certain principles. So right now there are around 4,000 institutional funds who have pledged that they will be taking these principles into account while making investments. The number of investors are also growing, and at present around more than $110 trillion assets, US dollar, are under the control of these kinds of funds. So, and if you can see the graph, the signatories are increasing over the years. And the main focus is that they will report performance under environmental, social, and governance parameters. So you can see the landscape is changing very much. The companies can no more have it as a choice, but they have to take it as a important aspect in the business model, in the strategy. So given these rapid and significant changes, the market is moving towards shifting to recognizing and rewarding the businesses who understand how to measure these risks, how to manage these risks, and how to mitigate these risks. These are the important aspects in today's environment. So let us understand what is ESG as such. If you can see this ESG, I think most of you must be knowing that ESG means environmental, social, and governance. In the environmental, we are talking about the aspects, like these are the three pillars. And the goal of ESG is to capture all these non-financial risks which are impacting a company. So if you talk about the first pillar, which is minimizing the impact of an organization on nature. So how the organization, which is a service organization or a manufacturing organization, how its operations are impacting the nature. So you can see, like, and it will depend, upon whether it is a manufacturing or a service organization. And like here you can see we have four types of heads where we can say first is climate change. That is, what are the carbon emissions, what are the greenhouse gas emissions, which while they're in the process of its operations, the business is releasing. What is its product carbon footprint? If it is manufacturing any product, what is the carbon footprint of that product? How it is, and what are the initiatives it is taking to be net zero? You all might have seen that many companies, they are making statements in news and media, and even they are publishing in their annual reports that they want to be net zero by 2030, 2040. So this should not be just that, just a talk. They should take some initiatives to achieve this also. So what initiatives are they taking to be net zero? Net zero means whatever carbon emissions they are emitting during the operations, then what initiatives they are taking to offset those carbon emissions. Maybe they are, maybe they are purchasing some carbon offsets, or they are planting more trees in some areas. So these are the aspect. Then climate change vulnerability, that how these climate changes, how they're vulnerable to it. That if they are working in an area which has, more floods are there, more droughts are there. So what steps they are taking in this regard. Then natural resources are depleting, and the businesses have to really understand that these natural resources are very important and they have to be used in an optimal way. So water stress is there, the water reservoir, the use which is there available for us, that is decreasing day by day. Then biodiversity and land use, you all must have heard about deforestation, that when deforestation is there, it disturbs the biodiversity of that place, the land usage and all. Then raw material sourcing. See, raw material sourcing is very important because, better sourcing practices, they can cut the associated consumption based on emission by at least 10%. And this is becoming very important, and this is called as decarbonizing the supply chain, which means it's not only that how you are reducing the carbon emissions in your own operations, but also how you're taking efforts and understanding that the supply chain is decarbonized. Your suppliers who are there, how they are giving you products, how they are producing that raw material, what is the carbon footprint of the raw material that they're giving to you. So in this, like, one can see that whether it is using renewable energy during sourcing or extraction, like if they are growing some crops, or if they are producing some parts. So what are they using renewable energy? Then also the supply chain should be very transparent. If the raw material sourcing has to be decarbonize the supply chain, so the supply chain should be very transparent. In the report it should be mentioned that from where the raw material is being taken, and how the raw material, the supply chain is, what is a supply chain, that should be mentioned very clearly. And all the good organizations who are working towards these ESG commitments, they ensure that their suppliers are committed to environmental management systems, that they should not take any supplier on board which is not committed to environmental management system. And the supplier should have an environmental policy and undertake activities to manage their environmental impact. So you can see that it is not just your operations, the organization should be restricted to their operations only, but also to their suppliers. Then the next head under the E pillar is pollution and waste, which is the toxic emissions which are getting into the water, the air. You can see in Delhi, the air pollution is so high. The Yamuna's water is also getting polluted by the industrial waste. Then packaging and construction waste, how it is being disposed of. Electronic waste is becoming a big hazard. The number of the electronic waste is increasing day by day, and how the organization is disposing it. Municipal waste, hazardous waste. Then environmental opportunities. Apart from trying to controlling these emissions, they should also have some environmental opportunities. That is how they are trying to move to the next level of their operations, environmental friendly operations, by taking on into opportunities of clean technology. As you all must be knowing about the environmental, like electric vehicles, which are there, and a lot of investment is going on. There's automobile makers, they are all investing a lot in this electric vehicles. So this is the next level where they're trying to move into the environmental opportunities. Low emission materials are being used by them now, and a lot of R&D is going on by the companies. They're investing a lot of R&D to go for low carbon materials, the material which are emitting low carbons. Like recently I had read somewhere that Mercedes-Benz and Scania, they have acquired stakes in H2 Green Steel, like, which is a startup which is constructing both green steel plant and green hydrogen plant that would help to produce a fuel which is needed for steel making. So this is just an example. The companies are taking initiatives on their own to move into a more cleaner space, to move into a more using emitting less and less carbon during their operations. It should not be that that you have to, that the company, the organization has just make emissions and now they're trying to set it off, but their operations should they should try to reduce. The first step should be to reducing the carbon emissions. Then the next step is to be how they can offset it, or how they can plant more trees or purchase more carbon credit. Waste management is becoming more and more important. This is part of this environmental pillar, where, like, you all must have heard about the single-use plastic, which should be banned. So recycling plastic waste through chemical treatment, this is one area where organizations are working. Then turning waste into energy. Many startups are working on this area, and the companies are funding them, how they can turn waste into energy. And application of smart waste management. This is something which I had just read somewhere, that there are AI sensors are there, which help them to give them sensors which give them signals that the bins are filled. And there are other technologies being used to manage this waste management. And one thing is, like, where most of the companies are making big claims, is they're setting targets for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, or reducing their water consumption, and reducing their waste volume. This is a big achievement. Like, personally, I feel reduction of waste volume by a company or by corporate is the first step. Unless until they're working towards that, where the environmental impact cannot come down. So first they should try to work on how to reduce the waste volume. It should be generated to the minimum as possible. If we speak about the social pillar, which is how what is the contribution of the company towards the society. Here the society means, first of all, the workers and the employees, then their communities, their consumers. So whoever are being impacted by the company, that is the social framework within which it is operating. So if you can see, there are 4 subheads under this. One is human capital, then there is product liability, there is stakeholder opposition, there is social opportunities. So human capital has labor management, where the factories are there. Labor management is very important aspects. And one thing which I feel is that the social aspects have a very big reputation damage. if any company is making any social harm or it is engaging into any negative social practices, then there is a lot of, reputational damage, because there is news comes up in social media. So the public perception changes very soon. And if we want to buy some product from that company, the first thing which comes into our mind is that it is impacting negatively to the to the society at large. So in the human capital, like there are policies against child labor. Child labor is one thing which is very important, that the companies should be discouraged, that they should not involve in child labor. Then gender diversity is right now many companies are working towards that they're increasing the number of female employees in their company. And it should not be that the female employees should be there only at the workers level, but at all levels, female employees should be there, and the working environment should be conducive. Equal opportunity should be given to them to work and to move to the next level. Then differently abled employees. This is a very important aspect in human capital management. The companies which are very much aware in this area, they give opportunities to differently abled people, and they provide them proper training to come into the mainstream. Minimum wages is very much important, especially in the manufacturing sector, where a lot of workers are there, so whether they are being paid minimum wages. So these are like health and safety risk is very important. The health and safety is very important because it has a lot of repercussions. If a company is not very much taking care of the health and safety factors, then it will lead to high sick leaves and accident rates. And in turn, this will lead to higher cost of temporary replacement, bad reputation, making recruitments difficult for the company. And the other aspect, connected thing, is that higher cost of compensating sick leaves, compensation will have to be given to sick and wounded employees. So you see, these factors impact the economic aspects also. Then human capital development. Human capital development means that the employees are being trained, the employees are being given good opportunities. Training should be an important part. Talent development should be an important part. Supply chain labor standards, this we had earlier touched upon. That supply chain labor standards is where we are aware that in our supply chain, whether there are transparent policies. We had covered the environmental aspect. Similarly, the labor standard should be complied by the supply chain. Product liability. Here we are, the aspects are like product safety and quality, chemical safety, if any chemicals are involved, how much safety they are taking for it. Financial product safety, if any financial product is being sold into the market with some parameters of some, some returns promise that so those should be there. It should not be that the investor is not getting that thing. Privacy and data security, this is very much increasing day by day as more and more technology is being adopted by the companies. So privacy and data security is very important. Responsible investment, that the company is responsibly making investments. Stakeholder opposition, you all must have heard many times that there are opposition towards controversial sourcing if the raw material is sourced from some controversial areas. Then if the company is doing any operations where it has to acquire some land from villagers, so it should be fair in resettlement and rehabilitation. So these aspects will impact its social image. Indigenous population or tribal rights, these are very important. If the companies which are working in the area of forest or somewhere where the tribals are involved, then they should take care that the tribal rights are taken care of. Social opportunity should be there. There should be access to communication, access to local employment should be there, healthcare should be there, opportunities in nutrition and health, technology disruptions, etc. The last pillar, the third pillar is governance, which is quality of processes for decision making. See, governance aspects were already there, and like the companies act has a lot of requirements for governance, corporate governance, but now they are being viewed in a very holistic manner, where ESG are three pillars, and we are taking overall risk assessment and which are material aspects. So governance was there, but it is being holistically seen. So in this, we are saying that there is independence or governance of the should be there of the board. There should be board diversity. Women board directors should be there. Remuneration should be as per the laws. Ownership should be there of the decisions which are being taken, and there should be proper reporting by the board. The quarterly reporting should be there. The audit committee reporting should be there. There should be transparency in the working of boards and audit committees. Then ethical behavior is very much important. Like business ethics are there. Business ethics means the way the business is operating. Anti-competitive practices should be there. Financial system instability should not be there. Tax transparency should be there. There are 70 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which are the genesis of the whole sustainability gamut. And so there are 17. The governance aspects are also covered there. And many investors, they're aligning their governance with these 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There are 3 Sustainable Development Goals which are related to this governance aspect. One is SDG 9, which relates to industry, innovation, and infrastructure. SDG 16, which relates to peace, justice, and strong institutions. Then SDG 17, which is with partnership with public and private institutions. And remuneration, I've just read at many places that the new trend is picking up in Indian companies and also in other countries, that several companies in India are reportedly ready to tweak the pay packages of the CEOs by adding ESG as a variable pay, as a new component in their variable pay, as well as making it as a part of their key result areas for senior management also. So the objective behind is that the senior management, the CEOs, they should take this ESG thing very seriously, and they should understand its importance. And then only the companies will be able to take it into, take it as a strategical thing. The companies which are really into competitive space, they want to make the best use of the opportunities which this ESG is putting. It's a risk, but if they manage it properly, then it is an opportunity for them. So just a glance through what are the sustainability reporting frameworks, like standards, which are right now. So if you can see, there are sustainability reporting standards of GRI and SASB. Then there was integrated reporting framework, which has already merged with ISSB. So if you can see the harmonizing, there is the IFRS, which has come with International Sustainability Standards Board, which has harmonized all these aspects of the GRI, integrated reporting, SASB. They have harmonized into that. And ISSB is coming up with 2 standards, and they have already come up with 2 standard. One in this general disclosures, and one is climate related disclosures. So because there were a number of frameworks and standards, so this ISSB is trying to harmonize them. Then rating agencies are there. With rating agencies, they rate the companies on various ESG parameters, and so that the investors are able to take decision on which company they want to make investment, which is having a very good ESG rating. Then there are some sustainability principles and guidelines, which give the basic guidelines to the companies. And these frameworks and standards are based on these sustainability reporting, these principles and guidelines. If we talk about the Indian landscape, so in India, we have this business responsibility and sustainability reporting. The SEBI had come out with BRR in 2015, which is business responsibility reporting. Now, since last year, it has been changed to business responsibility and sustainability reporting. These are based on 9 principles of national guidelines for responsible business conduct, which had been issued by Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So these 9 principles form the basis of these BRSR disclosures. These are more of a disclosure kind of format. BRSR gives a disclosure kind of format. so that the investors, the stakeholder, and other stakeholders, they can see that what activities are being currently done by the company under the ESG uh, area. These 9 NGRBC principles are very wide and they cover a broad range of things. Like the principle one is that businesses should conduct and govern themselves with integrity and in a manner that is ethical, transparent, and accountable. Principle two is for sustainable and safe businesses. Similarly, principle three says that businesses should report and promote well-being of all employees, including those in their value chains. So that is what we have just discussed, that value chain is also important. Then principle four is that the business should be responsible to all its stakeholders. It is just not the shareholders, but all its stakeholders who all are getting impacted by its activities. Principle six is on protection and restoration of environment. Principle seven is for engaging in public and policy influence in responsible and transparent manner. So like this, there are 9 principles. So this BRSR is based on these 9 principles. With the section A, there are 3 sections to BRSR. One is section A on general disclosures, which talks about the general disclosures about the company, that what are its products and services, where are its operations, the employees, number of employees, what are the network companies. Then CSR, it is doing the corporate social responsibility as required by the Companies Act. Then what are the transparency and disclosure compliances? So this gives you the snapshots of the general disclosures about the company to understand the company. Section B is on management and process disclosure. That is policy and management processes, the governance aspects, and the leadership and oversight. So this is performance of the entity against the specific commitments, goals, and targets which it has got. The main is the section C, which is the principle-wise performance disclosures. So here, what is the disclosure required is that the company has to report on the KPIs according to national guidelines on responsible business conduct. Every principle is there. Under every principle, there are essential indicators and leadership indicators. The essential indicators are mandatory, which means that every company has to report on those essential indicators, and the leadership indicators are voluntary, on which the company, if it wants, it can report voluntary. And there are both the quantitative and qualitative disclosures. If you go to the SEBI website, you can get the format of these BRSR disclosures. And there is also one guidance note to this BRSR disclosure, which explains various terms which are there in this BRSR disclosure. So this BRSR had been introduced last year, and now it is mandatory from financial year 2022-23. Although around, I think, more than 170 or 80 companies have already adopted voluntarily BRSR last year. And this is for the top 1,000 listed entities by market cap. And there is one format of BRSR Lite also, which is for small companies. And, there is many companies who are not, even though not coming under this range of 1,000 by market capitalization, they are also voluntarily adopting BRSR. So if you talk about the BRSR, so like many companies who are already preparing and disclosing sustainability reports based on the global frameworks, such as like global reporting initiatives, Sustainability Accounting Standards Board guidelines, which are more on industry specific. TCFD is the most widely used framework for climate related financial disclosures. Integrated reporting. So if they are already doing under these global frameworks, what they need to do is just make a mapping and show that, all right, whatever the BRSR wanted these disclosures, they have been presented here in this para of this GRI or SASB disclosures made by the company. Because these companies, they are operating in a global environment, and they are looking for funding for capital from outside the country also. So they are adopting international frameworks, and to encourage that, the SEBI says, okay, you do that international reporting according to that framework. For BRSR, you can just show us the mapping. No, the policies like BRSR requires to disclose information of all the existing policies in BRR and also some new policies. BRR was already there till 2000, from 2015. Now it is BRSR since last year. And some new things which have been added in BRSR are cybersecurity policy, preferential procurement policy, equal opportunity policy, and on in national and international labels and certificates, that what are the labels and certificates which the company is using. And in BRSR, the current and previous year data both has to be disclosed. And there are 19 questions against the 62 essential questions that ask to disclose both the current and previous year KPIs, like on energy consumption, water withdrawal, details of greenhouse gas scope emissions, details of waste management, etc. There is a detailed guidance note which helps the companies to interpret the scope of disclosures. And the BRSR has made a very distinctive differentiation between the employees and workers. Okay, the employees are there and the workers are the one who are working in the factories, and there are certain set of labor laws which are applicable to those workers. So these one can refer to the guidance note on BRSR for better understanding. And questions under BRSR are now more quantitative and granular. It has got 104 questions, 62 falling under essential category. And there's one latest development is there that the SEBI has come out with BRSR core. BRSR core, it gives us, it gives some KPIs where the companies have to disclose those KPIs. And then the top 150 listed companies will have to get these KPIs assured from an external expert from financial year 24. And there is a glide path which goes on till financial year 27, and all the top 1,000 companies are covered. And and there is one more thing which has been added is about the supply chain. Even the regulator is very much concerned about the supply chain, that whether the supply chain which uses thousands of players, whether they are also adopting environmental friendly practices or not. So this assurance of BRSR will also help to make the companies come out with more credible and consistent disclosures. So this was something which has give a very brief overview about what is the regulatory framework in which the Indian companies are operating right now with regard to ESG. Now we are moving to the ESG roadmap. So ESG roadmap, if company X wants to start its ESG reporting, wants to adopt ESG, first step should be current ESG state assessment. There should be a current ESG state assessment that the company should conduct desktop review of what are the current strategies, ESG strategies, initiatives and monitoring reporting system. The point is that the companies are doing many things, like they are working on diversity, they are working on reducing child labor, they are taking some environmental friendly practices. So what policies are they are doing, what already is they are practicing, that should be understood before moving to the next phase. So for this, there should be a list of the policies and procedures which are already in place across its operations. With respect to, like, we can study the HR practices for the finance, IT clients. So each department can be studied. So this will form part of the current ESG state assessment. Then what matrices are currently captured for other purposes? For reporting purposes, the company must be capturing through its MIS, some matrices. So what are the current data which is available in the companies? What matrices are currently being prepared by it? This should be the first step. The second step should be materiality assessment. We will cover it in much detail in the later slides. So this materiality assessment is the next step, where we are talking about what are the stakeholders which are important, what issues are there which are relevant and which can influence the company's operations, then how the stakeholder engagement should be there, what should be the methods for that, and how stakeholder consultation should be done, and the findings should be collated. This is the part of materiality assessment. Then there is ESG strategy. Once we are done with the materiality assessment, then we should have ESG strategy. This will involve reviewing the outcomes of the materiality assessment and aligning it to components of chosen framework, then determining ESG strategy, leveraging its current initiatives. Once we understand that which are the material issues which has to be covered, then then the organization should define the key policy areas, current policies, and then update them as required. The fourth is maturity assessment plus measurement. So this will help to calculate current level of ESG maturity within businesses. Okay. So why is materiality very important? Because materiality is important because it helps to the organization to filter the information that it should to understand which information is relevant for the users. Particular information is considered relevant if it could influence the decision making of stakeholders in respect of the reporting company. It can influence the decision making. That should be material. So their organization should take multiple factors into account, and they should identify the potential implications of these factors when making materiality assessment process. They should first understand what is the purpose of their materiality assessment process and ensure that the information is specific for the stakeholders. Here, there's a very new concept with ESG, which is double materiality, which is the union of impact materiality and financial materiality. Till now, we were just talking about the impact materiality. For financial materiality, financial aspects. But now the ESG has given us a new aspect of impact materiality. So if any information which has got financial materiality plus impact materiality or only impact materiality, that should be considered. So financial materiality covers information on economic value creation, which is like for the benefit of its shareholders only, which will impact their profit. However, the second aspect is which is going to impact the economy, environment, and people. So this is, for example, and these are also interrelated. You can't say that one will only impact financial materiality, one thing, and it will only impact your environment and social aspects. For example, if a company that has an uncontrolled release of a hazardous chemical would certainly create external impacts on the local community, potentially an organized in the water and the soil, and this also might be opening themselves to some kind of regulatory violations and associated penalties or financial losses from civil suits. And a company with a high intensity of greenhouse gas emissions may be contributing to climate risks, including weather events that can damage their facilities. So it is not that one will be in silo. It is a pharmaceutical or if it is a mining. So there will be different aspects which will be material to each and every company. Then materiality is dynamic. This concept recognizes that sustainability topics can move from being topics of sustainability interest in the broadest sense to being likely to influence enterprise value creation. And so they need to be recognized as material aspects. So accordingly, for any robust materiality framework, there should be a review, should be done to understand at an appropriate frequency. This would include to review the various reviewing the links to companies' risks, opportunities, and strategies, and assessing how the connectivity is reflected in their KPIs, in the management discussion, etc. And for this, there are various techniques that will help the companies to use the current data to assess the materiality in the future. And one thing which the company should caution is that materiality assessment should not be a tick box exercise. Otherwise, the whole purpose will be defeated. This will limit the value of the whole process of materiality assessment. In fact, organizations should use materiality assessment as a broader tool for integration of ESG into their strategy and decision making, and where the output should be used to evaluate the current strategies. So this shows that materiality is very important, and it is the first step. If it is done properly, the next steps will flow very seamlessly. So this is the materiality assessment process. If you can see on the right, there is a ESG data universe, where it says which gives a where you have to see three filters you have to apply. First is you have to understand the stakeholders' views. Then you have to evaluate risks and opportunities, assess the relevant frameworks and regulations. And based on these three, we have to the company should identify the ESG data which is material to the company. And here here the engaging of the internal and external stakeholders is very much important. Okay. And both the internal and external stakeholders should be consulted. The companies have their own processes set as per the requirement of consultation with their external stakeholders. And while making materiality assessment, the company should have decided which framework or which standards it is going to adopt, because this will impact its materiality impact assessment. The type of information it will require will be impacted. For example, excuse me. Yeah. So for example, if it is adopting BRSR, that is the business responsibility and sustainability reporting framework. So here, like principle 4, it says that, okay, first I'll cover that, like principle 4 says of BRSR is related to this stakeholder consultation, where the company has to disclose that which are its stakeholder groups, whether they have been, any of the stakeholder group have been identified as marginalized or vulnerable. What are the channels of communication which the company is using to communicate to these stakeholder groups? What is the frequency of engagement with these groups, stakeholder groups? And what is the purpose and scope of engagement, including key topics and concerns raised? So you see, even in the BRSR also, there is a specific principle 4, which is related to stakeholder engagement. And this is very important for the whole exercise of ESG. The stakeholder engagement should become the basis of this, the whole process. So what I was saying is that if you see the 4th point where it is saying the reviewing the applicable regulation and framework requirements. So if you like, as a company has adopted BRSR framework, so there are certain aspects where it should, which it should cover in its materiality. Like, for example, BRSR requires that grievances related to human rights issues and internal should be disclosed. And what is the internal mechanism which has been adopted by the company to redress these grievances? So when doing this materiality assessment, these aspects should be taken into mind, that the framework which has been adopted, or what data is required for that, also what information is required for that. For example, in waste management, BRSR has specifically made categories of plastic waste, e-waste, biomedical waste, battery waste, radioactive waste, other hazardous waste, other non-hazardous waste. So these information should be taken into account while making the assessment, that these kinds of things have to be covered by the company. And BRSR requires the strategy which is adopted by the company to reduce usage of these toxic chemicals, and the practices adopted to manage these such waste. So, these while doing the materiality assessment, these aspects has to be kept in mind. And companies also collaborate with their industry bodies to identify the sector relevant matrices, because as you know, materiality is very sector specific. So some best practices in each sector are there, which can help the companies to identify the material topics. So, so each material topic has to be seen through 2 lenses: impact on society and environment, and impact on business. Okay. In this process, the board plays a very important role, and the board has to see these are some basic aspects which can be taken into account, that while making the materiality assessment by the board and the senior management, that what is the ESG oversight and accountability driven throughout, whether it is driven throughout your organization, how it is embedded into your company strategy. How do you see ESG changing market dynamics? What is the net zero? Have you taken any net zero ambition is there of your company? What is the how has your operating model blueprint been aligned? Just not saying that that the company wants to be net zero, but how the operating model has been aligned to this net zero, and whether the board and the senior management, which is driving this ESG, has it really understood the areas of impact that where it has to focus, including where the key investment has to be made? Because ESG, or like if you are adopting some cleaner technology, or if you are going to some waste reduction, so where the investment has to be made, and whether the board is committed to make those investments. So these factors should be taken into account while the board is moving into its ESG strategy. This is an example which I have put to just showcase how the company are preparing their materiality matrix. This is the example I have taken from report of Glaxo's 2022 report, sustainability report. So you see, we are tabulating these ESG aspects under under two things. We are considering the importance to the business and also the importance to external stakeholders. Based on this, we are seeing whether the topic is of low importance to the company, or a high importance, or it is of very high importance. So if we can see that in the low area, there is low importance, you can see clinical trial conduct, waste and hazardous materials management, water and wastewater management. These are the aspects, issues which are material, but they are not so material. And where if you go move to the up, there is the very high, which are very high, posing very high risk. These issues are posing very high risk, like product quality and patient safety, product innovation, global health security, healthcare access and affordability. See, since Glaxo is a pharmaceutical company, so naturally to remain in the market, it has to take care of these aspects more importantly. So these are more material issues for them, that its quality of its healthcare products is of most important. Patient safety is most important. If any thing happens, there are a lot of penalties, and there are a lot of reputational damage is there, and even few like I think last month we had seen some companies have been banned because of exporting their this pharmaceutical products, because they were not complying with the patient safety norms, global health security. So these, you can see, since it is working in this pharmaceutical sector, so they are more important for it. So you see how these are the issues which the Glaxo has taken, and what are the aspects it is covering under that. Like climate change risk is there. So climate change risk, it is covering climate change risk management, energy use, conservation and reduction. So these are the main themes of the main material issues, and what it is looking into that. Clinical trial conduct. What are the ethics of clinical trials? And animal welfare should be taken care of while conducting the clinical trials. Healthcare access and affordability, being in the healthcare sector, this is most important, that there should be access to healthcare and medicine, disease awareness and education. They should give community support and development, healthcare capacity building, education and training. They should research into unmet medical needs. Then natural environment protection. So what areas is Glaxo covering under this natural and environmental protection? It is covering air emissions and air quality, biodiversity and ecosystems, transition to a circular economy, including packaging, circular design and models and product life cycle. Supply chain management, you can see this is an area which is becoming very, very relevant, very, very important, that what is the reliability and availability of supply chain? What are the social, environmental and economic standards in supply chain which are being adhered to by the suppliers? And what is the traceability of raw materials is very important. Talent attraction and retention, you can see this is material issues for most of the companies. waste and hazardous material management, it is very important. So you can see how the company is tabulating its material issues, and it is also disclosing what are the aspects it is covering under these material issues. This will just give a fair idea. Now, after doing the materiality assessment, there should be validation of this materiality assessment. That it should be communicated once it has been finalized. It should be communicated to the board, and the board should also be aware of the important risks and opportunities which are affecting the company value creation. Then it should also communicate process and results to other departments, so that like the risk management department should know what are the material areas, what are the which we have been identified, and what are the risks, and how it can also work on those areas. And the most important part is how these results of materiality assessments are reflected in the company's strategy, company's targets, its incentives, its risk assessment, and business opportunities. Now, this ESG materiality is something not an internal thing that, okay, the company has done it and it is with it. No, it needs to disclose it. It should show it to the stakeholders. It should disclose it, that how it has done the process of materiality assessment. So it should describe that what perspective on materiality has been applied. And it should also explain any judgments and assumptions. It should also describe the specific steps which has been taken to identify and validate material topics, including how views of the organization and key stakeholders have been taken into account. And there should be clear description of the assessment done, and it should be supported by the participants and users understanding also. It should be in such a way that any user can understand it. And it should be disclosed through a materiality matrix or a list of material issues, like we have just discussed earlier. So this is the part of disclosure. Then reporting should be there on the changes over time and how often this materiality assessment is conducted. As we have discussed earlier, that there should be, since materiality is a dynamic thing, so it should be assessed and this should be disclosed. Include relevant and material information in a specific and concise way. Then demonstrate the validation and follow-up, and explain that how the third parties contributed to this whole process, how the stakeholder consultation has been done. This should be explained. I'm just giving an example of how the companies are disclosing their materiality assessment, because this is very important. So this is an example of Tata Consumer. It has reported in its 2022 ESG report, where as part of BRSR, the company has to report that which environmental and social matters present a risk or an opportunity to its business, rationale for identifying the same, approach to adapt or mitigate the risk along with its financial implications. So what the company is saying, Tata Consumer is writing, is that this financial year, we adopted a consultative approach to arrive at our material issues. We carried out stakeholder consultation with both internal and external stakeholders, seeking their perspective and issues. Basis the response along with sectoral peer analysis and in alignment with Indian and global standards, we have arrived at the following key material topics. And the materiality approach, methodology, and outcomes have been elaborated in the materiality section. Okay, similarly, there's an example of Reliance. Reliance is also making similar kind of disclosures.
Jyoti, it's already 12, like we can wrap up like quickly now.
Yeah, sure. So this is the Reliance example. So let's move on to the data collection. So once we have done the materiality assessment and we have understood, the company has understood which are the material topics where the data is required for disclosures. So the next step is data collection. So once the materiality assessment is done properly, this process flows very seamlessly. So we have to identify that which are the data producers and owners across the organization. There can be, various departments are there which are owning certain data or which are preparing certain reports. So the identification of this data architecture, which in general parlance we call data architecture, that should be there. Then what are the internal and external sources of data? And internally, like we have data from HR, which is responsible for employees training and diversity. Then there is safety, health, and environmental data, So, and there is carbon management data where operational functions are involved. So we have to identify the internal, external sources of data and what should be the frequency of data collection, whether it should be yearly, quarterly, monthly, or daily, that we should understand. Then based on the sources of data, as we have discussed, internal data and external data. So there are certain data which can be directly measured through handheld scanners or through various energy usage at different sites. So, the latest trend is that APIs are being used, application programming interfaces are being used to directly capture this data to a reporting software. So most of the companies are using technology for that. And for external data, the company has to take it from the third parties. The bulk of data comes from there. Companies, they request data from the suppliers, both at the contract or onboarding stage. And scope 3 emissions can be calculated only when we have data from our supply chains. And many companies request suppliers to complete a submission on supply chain platform. They have a platform for that where they have to give various data. Now, whether the company is taking it manually or automated, but internal audit teams have to be deployed so that they have proper control over the quality of data. And this data should be integrated in its annual reporting cycle. And there should be review whether this existing data quality is good for strategic decision making. This is the last slide where we are talking about how this data can be processed. Some companies, they are using master spreadsheets, which are cloud-based, file tailored, or there are business intelligence platform, their data visualization tools. Then there are specialized data platforms also available, ESG platforms also available. There are ERP softwares, integration can also be done for putting in this ESG data. So this data collection will be unique for each and every organization. So I think this is something which I wanted to share with you all. I'm stop sharing this with you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jyoti Singh, ma'am. Now I would like to present the vote of thanks of the event. Respected CA Jyoti Singh ji, esteemed member of IA India, and distinguished participants, on behalf of the organizing committee, I stand before you today to extend my heartfelt gratitude and appreciation for making this webinar on ESG roadmap, data collection, and materiality perspective a resounding success. This event, organized by IA India and IA Delhi Women's Forum, has been a significant milestone in promoting awareness and understanding of environmental, social, and governance practices. First and foremost, we would like to express our sincerest thanks to CA Jyoti Singh for gracing us with her profound knowledge, insights, and expertise during her enlightening session. Her comprehensive presentation on ESG data collection and materiality perspective was both informative and thought-provoking. We truly appreciate her dedication to sharing her expertise and contributing to the growth of our community. We extend our gratitude to the entire team at IA India for the continuous support and dedication in organizing this webinar. Their meticulous planning, coordination, and tireless efforts were instrumental in ensuring the smooth execution of the event. We would also like to thank the IIA Delhi's Women's Forum for their invaluable contribution in organizing this webinar. Thank you so much, Sana ma'am and Yukti ma'am. The Women's Forum has constantly been at the forefront of empowering women's professionals and providing them with a platform to showcase their talent. Their unwavering commitment to promoting diversity and inclusivity in the field of finance and governance is truly commendable. Our heartfelt thank and appreciation goes to all the participants who took time. Your active engagement, insightful questions, and willingness to learn have greatly enriched the discussions. In conclusion, we would like to express thank to CA Jyoti Singh ma'am, IA India, IA Delhi Women's Forum, and the participants. Thank you all once again. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. We would request you to please give your feedback. And there is one question we have, Jyoti. What is the role of the central bank in ESG?
Yeah, there's banks are the capital providers. So these banks are moving into a space of sustainable finance, where you must have heard of green bonds, and also there are a lot of parameters which are being put. If a company is issuing any green bonds or ESG bonds, so what are the parameters they have to fulfill before they can say that these are ESG bonds or green bonds? Secondly, there is a lot of pressure on banks to make an ESG study, that what are the environmental risks which are there in the loans which they are providing. So maybe if you go to the RBI site, you will find some reports on this, where the environmental factors which are not so much important in assessing the non-performing assets, they are being made more important by the banks now.
Yeah, so Mr. Ajay Kumar Jaiswal has raised his hand. You may unmute and ask your question. Or you can type. Yeah, I think.
Hello. Can I ask? Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can I get the presentation?
Yeah,
Hello.
please the feedback. We'll send you the details.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll get your email ID properly and then we can send you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I think if there are no other questions, we can conclude. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you,
Thanks a
everyone.
lot.
Thanks
See you
a lot.
all next Saturday, same time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Yukti.
Bye.
Bye.